So, our final review of the day is going to be for one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It is Halloween 1978, not Halloween 2007, not Halloween 2018. No, this is the OG Halloween, the John Carpenter Halloween, the
That
one that's
original recipe.
the original recipe. Got it from the mama there. So this is Halloween 1978, classic horror film, one that everyone goes back to a lot. John Carpenter. This is when he was dominating at the time. Then he went on to go make other great movies such as They Live, Escape from New York, The Thing. Just classic all time
Big
films.
Trouble, Little China.
Big Trouble, Little China. Just streak back to back to back to back,
Oof.
just doing a lot of great stuff.
Yeah,
there.
it's like his streak from basically 76 with Assault on Precinct 13 all the way up to 1988. It's the stuff of legends.
It is pretty impressive. And he made his mark here with this movie, dealing with the now infamous slasher Michael Myers, who's become one of the most famous slashers in all of horror movies and all of media. Tons of people, of course, it's Halloween, so you have tons of people who dress up as him. He's along the lines of, of course, Jason and Freddy Krueger. But before them, there was Michael Myers. And I think that even though that, I mean, this kind of more popularized the slasher film because people like
Mhm.
to credit Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho with being the very
Mhm.
first slasher film. This
Yeah, it's
definitely
like
was
yeah, and there were other slasher movies before this, like
Black
Hitchcock's
Christmas.
Psycho, Bob Clark's Black Christmas.
Yeah.
This is the one that really cemented this as being a viable subgenre.
Mm, yeah. And this movie was on a shoot for 20-day shoot, $300,000, and then it went on to go for I think it made the gross 47 million at the US box office. And then, now it's kind of pumped up a lot of the earnings have gone up and up because they've done re-releases of it. But yeah, so it made a huge profit there. And then that was one of the reasons why Jamie Lee Curtis, who people know is the daughter of Janet Leigh, who was the girl and the woman in Psycho, who is the first murder there. That's what a lot of the inspiration behind John Carpenter to cast her because of like continuing that slasher kind of legacy there of having that. And a lot of things here with the movie, which tons of changes have been made to Halloween and the lore and, Michael Myers. And they did a lot of, I mean, numerous sequels trying to explain him. And it's like, there was
Mhm.
one, what was it, Halloween? Which one was that one where they try to explain like he was like a devil baby or
I think
something?
it
It was
was
6.
5. I think it was Curse of Michael Myers, where
Curse.
they like said that he was uh like under the influence of this cult, the cult of the Thorn. I think it was.
I believe that's 6.
Yeah, I think it was 6 because that was the one
Yeah.
with Paul Rudd, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
As
yeah.
Tom
6
as
is the one with Paul Rudd. 5 is the one that completely eschews the awesome ending of 4.
it also is the final movie with Donald Pleasant.
Oh, yes, Donald Pleasant, who I'm gonna play a clip of, in a minute, rest in peace to him. But yeah, and then they try to add the retcon it where they said that Michael Myers was the brother of Jamie Lee Curtis's character. Yeah, that's kind of a weird choice. I mean, I never really kinda liked that. How did you all feel about that?
I could take it or leave it.
Yeah, what about you, Dust?
John Carpenter has famously said he wrote the script in 3 days. He had a week to do so. He stayed up for 3 days, and they wanted a sequel film, and so he just came up with a bunch of things.
Yeah. And Jamie Lee Curtis, who famously plays Laurie Strode. But I think a lot of this movie is also sold by Donald Pleasance, who plays
Mm.
Dr. Donald Loomis, who was Michael Myers' psychiatrist
Oh
there
yeah.
when he was locked up. Because, of course, at the beginning, which I think the movie opens up really amazingly, because the beginning of this movie, it opens up with him. You see Michael Myers as a little boy in his
Yeah.
POV.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, go.
it's an entire like long single take of just from Michael Myers' POV, and it's a long sequence, especially considering back then with the technology that was around, how heavy cameras were. it's super impressive how they filmed it. And the real gut punch is the reveal that, the guy who committed this horrific act of violence against his sister is just a little kid.
Yeah, just a little demon there. And yeah, you see it from his point of view, but again, very reminiscent of something like Psycho, where it was just the POV kind of shots there.
Mhm.
Picks up the knife, goes into his sister's room, kills his sister, and then it kind of cuts there, where you see the police kind of come outside and
Yeah,
unmask it.
kills her after like the shortest sex implication in all of Hollywood. Dude, like they like go upstairs and then like 30 seconds later the dude is coming down putting his clothes on.
Well, I mean, hey, he got in and out. I mean, good for him, I guess. The only time where finishing quick actually paid off. There.
Hey, he had a better fate than the boyfriend in the Rob Zombie version.
Yeah, very true there. But yeah, I mean, so now that there's all this stuff there, I think with the David Gordon Green, I like Halloween 2018.
Mhm.
I think Halloween 2018 is actually I consider maybe the second, third best Halloween movie. I do like Halloween 2, which Halloween 2 is just an immediate follow-up to the first Halloween, where you see where Laurie Strode's in the hospital, and then Michael Myers hunts her down in the hospital. Very much like, since John Carpenter did Assault on Precinct 13, very much that type of like bottle type film there. But I do like because it kind of tries to go back more to Michael Myers being the shape, being just this monster, this evil incarnate. And you have this scene right here.
Years ago, I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
What do we do?
Get the fuck out. That's what you do. Get the fuck out that town.
Run, bitch, run!
But I mean, you see that downplays a lot of his, acting ability really
Yeah,
sells it.
Yeah, I think what Donald Pleasance does here with the character of Sam Loomis, it's very similar to what Alec Guinness does for A New Hope. It just, he's an actor with such a high pedigree that he adds this level of gravitas to dialogue that is objectively silly. It's like a psychiatrist talking about a 6-year-old kid that murdered his sister.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, even how like teachers, they got ops, psychiatrists may got ops too. It's like, listen, I can't do nothing with this motherfucker. I tried, I tried to do my best, but
I give up.
I just give up. I mean, like, I gotta just lock him up forever. You know what I
It
mean?
needs to die.
Who Don's Pleasance, had a legendary career. I mean, he was Dr. Evil, famously in the
he was. Yeah, he was in one of the original adaptations of 1984. He was in Adventures of Robin Hood. Had a long career before Halloween, and even to the point where that was basically considered him slumming it.
Yeah. He was Blofeld in the Bond movies, famously there as one of Bond's greatest villains. There, which a role that would go on to be parodied, with the speaking of another Mike Myers there. In the Austin Powers movies, there with Dr. Evil there. So he was that with Blofeld. Dusk, what are some of your thoughts on Halloween 1978 there?
This film is the original slasher film. It started everything. If you don't consider Psycho, which you should, this is the copycat's favorite movie to copy. Everything from Friday the 13th to later slasher genres owes a remarkable amount to this seminal work. And as a stone cold killer myself, I gotta respect the original.
Hey,
The
game recognizes game.
The Shape, Michael Myers, the original killer.
One of the
Cold
goats.
evil, one of the goats.
It's
Pure
like
evil.
Michael Jordan, Michael Phelps, Michael Myers.
No matter who you talk to, this movie, when watched now, might seem quaint.
Mhm.
It might seem simple. A few teenagers die, but the way it's presented, the way the music is presented, the way everything is presented is excellent, especially for the budget and the time. Everybody does their job from the POV shot that was done gracefully by John Carpenter to the musical score, which if you've walked in any store, go to any place during the Halloween season, might as well be the theme for the season as a whole.
Yeah. I think, yeah, as much as, Mariah Carey owns Christmas was All I Want for Christmas Is
John
You.
Carpenter owns Halloween.
John Carpenter owns Halloween with the famous Halloween theme. The different sounds, the soundtrack, the song, the themes that are put in here really add to the movie. That really also makes the movie as well.
And that's something that's really taught in every single film class, basically from 1978 on. It's how much score can make a scene, because I think there was like this comparison of one of the early scenes of Michael stalking Laurie, and it was just the diegetic sound from the movie, and it doesn't nearly have the same impact as it does with the score put in.
Because there's scenes where it's just without the music, and it's just not the same impact as the scenes with the music. You can see that.
It's just, okay, who's this weird motherfucker?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, he's just looking at a girl, then going away. It's like without the music, you just think, well, maybe he's just shy. Maybe he's just, maybe he's got a crush. I don't know.
He's trying to spit some game.
Maybe he's got something there.
But the music isn't the only thing. It's the lack of movement that also helps sell this. Many times with later sequels would later forget, even other movies forget. Those scenes where Michael just stares out, not moving, just staring blankly. You turn, look away, and then he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
That lingering presence of someone always watching, just waiting and ever present, that sets the mood as well. And I think the lack of movement can add to the mood just as much as the music does.
Oh, absolutely. And not enough praise can be sung for Nick Castle, who plays the Shape while he's masked in this, and even later with Tony Moran, who plays Michael when he's very briefly unmasked.
Yeah, and I have that scene right here where he kind of gets
and that's something that always got to me with Halloween, because a lot of slasher movies, they're play on this just don't go into the woods, or just don't be where you're not supposed to be, and you won't be a victim of this kind of evil. And with Halloween, Carpenter was like, no, this shit can happen anywhere. This is in your backyard. This can be anywhere. And something with especially when he's unmasked towards the end of the movie, it's like, we want to call Michael Myers this like huge boogeyman, but he's really just a guy.
Yeah. And yeah, this was, in this fictional little suburban town in Illinois, Haddonfield, Illinois. There is a Haddonfield, New Jersey. There is that, but there is no Haddonfield, Illinois. And me being somebody who was from Chicago, I was like, oh fuck, you know what I mean? Like Michael Myers when I was a kid.
Try that shit in the South Side.
Yeah, you see the scene here where she kind of rips off his mask, and you briefly kind of see his face there. And at first you kind of think, man, he's a little goofy looking motherfucker, kind of a little bit, kind of. But yeah, you kind of see him there where she kind of rips off his mask. But that's also iconic too. The scene where he just kind of gets up right there, like everybody does that. You know what I mean? That kind of move there.
Underneath those coveralls, Michael is just jacked.
Oh yeah, very like homeless man, like Stephen Lane, kind of like that. You know what I mean? Like very. But yeah, that movie he just kind of gets up, just rises up there. That's also kind of very iconic there. Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. What do you all think about her?
Oh, it's an all-time performance, especially because I think this was one of her first roles, and I think because prior to this, we got characters like Janet Leigh's character from Psycho, or like the leads in Black Christmas, where they were always played with like this little bit more of an edge to them. And with Laurie Strode, with Jamie Lee Curtis's performance, there's such this warmth and innocence to her that kind of led her to basically establishing the title of Scream Queen.
Yeah. Duns, what about you?
Just like her mother, Janet Leigh, she's the original Scream Queen. The genes passed on, and her performance here would later set up what she does later on in her career, rightly doing that she also had other careers to go down to, such as Trading Places and further along to being, of course, in other great franchises and other great movies, and an own actress in her own right. But even in a small screen, even in one of her early movies, shows a genuine warmth and humanity, which makes it all the harder when you have to kill her eventually.
Which Michael Myers did end up doing. I think that was Halloween.
Yeah, that was the opening of Halloween Resurrection.
Resurrection. Yeah. There was
Yeah,
that.
Nobody remembers
or,
that one.
As the chat knows, the Busta Rhymes one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that. I always remember that for Buster Rhymes. Yeah. It's like trick or treat. Yeah, I mean, I always remember that.
Those kids come around, see us dressed up in the same shit. You're gonna ruin the whole effect. God damn it!
They could have cut out the beginning of that movie and it wouldn't have made a damn difference. People would have just remembered it for Busta Rhymes.
Yeah.
As they should.
Yeah, because he was great in it, and I was just happy. Hey, black guy lived. I think that that's something great. He was one of those.
Black guy
people-
fucked up Michael Myers.
Yeah, he had some kung fu in his back pocket. But yeah, Michael Myers. So he eventually did kill Laurie Strode. This was in Halloween Resurrection. But don't worry, there was a reboot in Halloween 2018. So Laurie Strode, because the Halloween timeline is all
Yeah,
fucking over
there's
the
like
place.
5 different timelines for Halloween.
Yeah, there's like multiple different timelines there. So she kind of comes over, so she comes back in 2018 there, Halloween, which I thought she did great, and Jamie Lee Curtis did in 2018, and really expanded upon that character
Yeah,
there.
and yeah, for all the flaws of David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy,
The many.
of which there are many, and even though I've kind of warmed up to them, they are still very flawed movies, but none of them are Jamie Lee Curtis's performances in any of those movies.
Yeah. So yeah, I very much appreciate that a lot. And when you look at kind of Michael Myers as a killer, kind of what he does, kind of like his brutal nature, and also kind of like a little bit of an artistic kind of nature to his character, and like a little bit of playfulness. It's like you have this scene here where he kills this guy. Of course, the classic horror movie slasher trope. Teens, having sex, gotta kill him, right? It's always a thing there. And then he kind of takes his place. And then it's funny because he just stabs him. He's kind of looking like, oh, wow, I did that. Oh, cool. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, giving way to the classic head tilt.
And then he just kind of shows up dressed as the boyfriend here. You know what I mean? Trying to be playful. And that's kind of funny. A lot of those choices that John Carpenter does with Michael Myers there. He shows up looking like it from the Addams Family there. So yeah, I like that a lot. And do some of those killings, and we saw it a lot with the David Gordon Green movies as well, where he kind of very artistic. He's leaving his kills there. You know what I mean? And rearranging the bodies. And there's that scene where in the kitchen where he's stabbing the guy, picks up another knife. He's like, I don't really like this knife. Let me get another knife real quick. How does this knife feel? And he's just stabbing him there.
Stringing up a lot of the bodies that he finds in various vignettes. And there's always kind of like this creative side to Michael Myers. And I think part of it is just how deep down Michael Myers still is just that 6-year-old child who murdered his sister. And that it's kind of like reminds me of like a little kid making macaroni art to put on your parents' fridge.
Yeah. Him and Hitler, maybe they should just go to art school. If they just gone to art school, everything would have been okay, Dusk, what do you think about some of the kills in this movie?
The most famous one is probably the picking him up and stabbing him giving to the iconic head tilt that is very much a Michael Myers movement. The tombstone moment later on always tilted my head that's so impractical, man. Why are you carrying a headstone that weighs at least 90 pounds? He's got some great upper body strength, I'll tell you that. Going all the way and then placing it for reasons, because he can. But it's a great setup, nonetheless. Sometimes madness has a way, and he just does things because he feels like it for no particular reason. I always got across that Michael did things or didn't do things on a whim.
Yeah, just when he felt like it. Yeah. and then later on, I mean, do you think kind of like this is like with Halloween franchise? It's a good example to show how more movies leads to more explanation, and then more explanation kind of just ruins things. Because that's what I mentioned with trying to explain like why is he hunting Jamie Lee Curtis's character in particular? Like, why does he have such fascination with Laurie Strode, and why does he just go after her in particular throughout this whole movie? And then they try to explain it like, oh well, that's her brother, and he wants to kill the whole Myers family, or something like that.
Or this cult is telling him to do it, or other people outside of him are kind of pointing him in her direction.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, what do you all think about that with the kind of the Halloween franchise there? Because at first it was supposed to be like a series of anthology where it was supposed to be every Halloween movie was supposed to be something different. Like they tried that with Season of the Witch, which was the third film.
Yeah, they tried to with an extent, but the first movie was such a resounding success that the studio demanded a direct sequel. And then when they tried to do Season of the Witch, it was just met with this just resounding backlash that they immediately went back on that.
Yeah,
But
which
it gave us the awesome Halloween 4.
yeah. And it also gave us, was it 10 more days till Halloween?
Halloween.
Gave us that. And that was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace there. And actually, now it's kind of Halloween 3, even though it was kind of hated at the time, like Nick mentioned. It's kind of become like a cult classic now.
Mhm.
A little bit with that movie. So
It's a lot more respected.
yeah, it's a lot more respected now. But yeah. So what do you all think about that with the Halloween franchise and just, it constantly, needing more explanation, kind of ruining things there?
Well, I think what a lot of filmmakers miss about Michael Myers is this kind of anonymity that comes with him. Because nothing that anybody comes up with about his backstory is going to be any scarier than the real truth about him is that he's just a guy. And to me, that's always what really stuck out with me with Michael Myers. Like even the very opening of the movie, it's just a little kid who committed this horrific thing. And, at the end of the movie, when he's unmasked, he's just kind of this goofy looking guy. It's speaking to how evil can really just come from anywhere, even in this safe gated suburbia that the movie is set in.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff?
Michael Myers is like a shark. He senses blood in the water and he goes and he eats. He's not meant to be complicated. He's not meant to have a backstory. He's not meant to. He's just a guy who, on a whim, does horrible things. Trying to make him connected to Laurie Strode's character, trying to connect him to a long-standing connection misses the entire point of the originals.
Making him a hellbilly completely misses the point.
Yeah, he lived in a normal suburban life, and then he murdered people because he could, and he discovered that he could, and it never left him. He's just a bad egg, and he comes in in just a shape, just like Michael Myers. He is just a shape. He is the shape of evil. He's the banality, the ambiguity. He's just a killer. I guarantee you, if you had a demon in front of him and he tried to make some sort of deal in front of Mike Myers to give him more power or try to manipulate, he would just stab the demon. He would just keep stabbing at him because he does not care. He's just a guy who does things on a whim that happen to be evil. Maybe he'll knock you out. Maybe he'll steal your car. Maybe he'll stab you 17 times. Or maybe you'll bump into him, never realize it. He'll look at you and then keep walking. He's randomness. And that's what makes it scary, is that there's just somebody out there who doesn't move, who just watches and waits.
Yeah, because there's a scene where he goes and he's stalking Laurie Strode and just walking through the town, and then a little kid just comes running. He just stops the kid, just grabs him there by the shoulders, and just doesn't do anything, and just lets the kid kind of run off there. So yeah, it's just kind of like this thing, this just unpredictableness. Could just do anything at any moment there. Any big negatives you all think with this movie?
I mean, any negatives I have with this movie are just kind of, because this movie was made in the 70s, some of it feels a little quaint. But there is one thing that kind of always stuck out to me that really makes no sense. How the fuck does this dude know how to drive?
Yeah, I was wondering. I wondered that when I rewatched it. I was like, he's been locked up in this mental institution all this time, and like, how would he know how to drive a car? Like, he's been locked up since when he was what, like 10?
Because, I remember being like 15, getting my learner's permit. That shit is scary. It's like, how the fuck did this dude learn just like watching people?
Oh, yeah, that always kind of was like a big nitpick for me there. What about you, Dusk? Any like real big negatives there?
The driving scene doesn't make logical sense. I'll give you that. Another thing, if I had to give a complaint, Dr. Loomis shows up. He's great in it. But for most of the movie, he just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he's Michael Myers' hype man.
He just is near the house, waits. Not with a cop, not with backup. He just waits there. And he has one scene where he tells a kid to get your ass out of there.
Hey, Lonnie, get your ass away from there.
They could have had it where he and the sheriff are on their way, and they're picking up clues, picking up the trail, adding the tension.
Yeah, and God, it nearly makes me sick to say this, but that is one thing that I think I preferred. The one aspect I liked about the Rob Zombie version, because you got so much time with that film's Loomis and Sheriff Brackett, who is played by the incredible Brad Dourif in those.
Yeah. Legendary Brad Dourif.
Yeah, I mean, so for me it would be the driving, but that's just like a nitpick there would be there. The fact that the police would, be so hand in hand with this psychiatrist, this doctor.
It's the 70s.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's the 70s. It's like at the time, cases like Michael Myers, like killers like them, weren't really a thing.
Right. Yeah.
They had to create a whole
or at least not publicly known as being a thing.
Right.
Yeah. Because as Nick mentioned in the last review, that didn't really come up, until like the 80s, really, with, you have criminal investigators, FBI, call them profilers, really identified serial killers and things like that. So that really wasn't a thing. But yeah, him working kind of hand in hand with the police there. He also had a gun, just going out shooting, which the police tell him like, what the fuck are you doing? He just kind of pulls it out there.
Like, headshot, motherfucker.
There, but yeah, I mean, so yeah, but it's still, again, Donald Pleasance, I mean, great performance from him. I mean, legendary kind of horror performance there. Like you said, like they made a great comparison. It's like he is what the Halloween, what Alec Guinness was to Star Wars. Added a sense of gravitas to the movie. Gave it a sense of prestige there. Yeah. So I'm gonna go into final thoughts there. Give a rating. Go around, Nick.
Oof. What can be said about this movie that hasn't been said already? Other than that, even like for like almost 50 years later, this is still one of the greatest slasher films, one of the greatest horror movies, and one of the most iconic films in history, even to the point where back in 2006, it was recognized by and put into the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being, culturally, historically, aesthetically significant. Just how much can be said and dissected about the character of Michael Myers, about what Carpenter was trying to say with this movie, about how banal evil really is, about how even in these safety of these suburbs, that evil still very much exists here, and it's right in your backyard, about how real innocence can triumph over that in the case of Laurie Strode. This is just an incredible film, and not much. And besides all of the gore and all the kills in this, it's grounded by these incredible performances from both Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis. There's a reason that even like almost 40 years later, Curtis is still recognized as one of our great working actors, even finally winning an Oscar for Everything Everywhere. I still don't think she should have won for that movie, but it was an incredible performance either way. And even several years later, coming back to the role of Laurie Strode in the David Gordon Green trilogy is like, as flawed as those movies are, her performance is always a highlight of those.
Yeah. So what were you rating there?
Dude, I can't give this anything but This Is Cinema. This has been on the Halloween rotation since I was a little kid. Every single year I've sat down and watched it on Halloween night. I've always listened to the soundtrack from John Carpenter. It's just a staple of the season.
Dust.
This is cinema. You can't ask for anything better. It's always in the pick of the week or the month as you're playing those movies that get you ready for the season. This is almost always in the week rotation just before, if not the day or day before or day of. It made the soundtrack to the season. It inspired a plethora of slashers. Better or worse, doesn't matter.
Always imitated, never replicated.
That's right, baby.
I have to give it also. This is cinema. One of my favorite horror movies ever. I love everything about it. One of John Carpenter's best films. It is legendary, iconic, setting the trend for all horror as we know it today. Especially the slasher genre. Be making the iconic character of Michael Myers, the incredible scream queen performance by Jamie Lee Curtis, the great performance by Donald Pleasance. I mean, this is a staple for Halloween. If Halloween, gotta watch Halloween. I mean, that just is what it is. You know what I mean? Every Halloween, and that's what I do. Whip this movie out and watch it. And I very much appreciate it for that. And John Carpenter there, legendary director, and hey, he's still getting them Halloween checks. He's like, hey, my hand comes out, check comes in, and that's all I do. You know what I mean? I don't care what they do with Halloween anymore. That's not my thing. Maybe if they need me to get on the piano again and play some keys, maybe I'll do that.
His new soundtracks to the movies, for all the flaws of those movies, the soundtracks he makes for them are fantastic.
Yeah, what he makes along with his son Cody Carpenter, and I'm struggling to remember the third guy that they have.
Yeah. So this is cinema for Halloween 1978. If you've never seen Halloween the OG Halloween, what are you doing? I mean, come on. I mean, you gotta see it.
I'll come to your house.
Yeah. Just come to your house.
We'll
Yeah,
come over and dice you.
Yeah.
Yeah, duck.
So
Last thing you ever see.
that was Halloween 1978. 3. This is cinema.